Oh, yeah, back with another wellness check, 30 minutes or less. Everybody knows the rules. Good vibes only. I had to get one of my favorite box friends out of retirement because we are less than 1 month away from Canelo Alvarez versus Bud Crawford. Hey, a showdown for the ages of some kind. But Chicago's own James Foley is back in my face hole, back in my life. Jimmy Jam, maybe for people that weren't there, 10 years ago when you were the snarkiest, cleverest boxing podcaster and writer in the game. How are you? Where the hell you been? And are you ready to put your hand inside that box for Canelo Crawford? We got a lot to catch up on here, bro.
I realize you're not even coming through on here, so why am I wearing that? I am good. So we got a lot to go through. But just right at the outset, I just want to say that last fall I was at a Bulls game with my son, minding my own business, and then the next thing I know, I'm hearing some allegations of washedness. Some dude with a handlebar mustache and red hair. You might know him. His name, Washed Bartholomew.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
It hurt. So
it hurt.
I didn't shave the beard for today, but I got a little haircut. I'm trying to beat those allegations, man.
Yeah, that's all we can do.
Good years left. It's going to be true sooner than later.
I mean, Rafe and I were trying to remember all the names of the podcasts you did that we loved. You know what I mean? What was the original name when you and Patrick Connor the Beard were dominating this scene back in the 2014s and 15s?
Yeah, it went through. I don't really remember that. I had a little phase of when edibles became legalized here. I was a daily guy for like 8 years, so you would probably know better than I would. But no, I think it was.
I'm just fine.
Yeah, I mean, it had several incarnations. And time flies, and I had a couple kids in the meantime. But yeah, we used to be TQBR Radio, which was affiliated with the old Queensberry Rules site. God, I'm trying to think what it was called after that. I think now it is called Rope-a-Dope Radio or something, right? And he co-hosts it with R.S. Pina, who is a great guy.
Well, Knuckles, one of the coolest
vintage boxing T-shirt collections.
Nobody's got better vintage T-shirts than Pina. Yeah.
The stuff he pulls out is amazing. I don't know where he finds it.
Rafe and I were calling you out as a boxing podcast guy that was ahead of the game. You inspired me. Being on your show was, I said, I got to get my own one day. You know what I mean?
Bro, I want us to be like at the end of Pacquiao De La Hoya, where it's just like, you're my hero. No, you're mine. So I think we can kind of get that vibe just right out of the gate. But yeah, it was good, good times. And part of the reason, obviously, had a family, life situations changed, but it's also the fact that boxing became harder and harder to follow when it wasn't on, ESPN, HBO. I know HBO was a subscription network, so it wasn't like it was on like terrestrial TV, like your boy Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali back in the 70s. But it just became, and I think the fights became scarcer and scarcer that were really interesting to me. And so I did have a stint where I'm watching 2, 3, 4 pay-per-view events per year and kind of just fell off. And maybe it had something to do with Victor Ortiz's retirement.
Yeah.
That was probably the last straw. But
I think once that pizza slice hit him in the side of the face in the Berto fight, a piece of your soul went with it, I think.
That was like our generation's JFK assassination. So, it was tough to stomach that. Dude, but there's a lot of indignities in the sweet science.
No, there really is, including Gabe Montoya's acting career. But to get you into the box once more, it feels good when you hear the words Canelo Crawford, two guys that were around back when you bled for this game, when you loved this sport, before you got into selling corn across the Midwest and being a family man. This is going to wake up the masses. the casuals, the lapsed ones, the hardcores. It's got Netflix. It's got Dana White. It's got Turki Alalshikh paying for it. I mean, you couldn't plan a more island of misfit toys cast of characters behind this event. It's also a really crazy, big, important fight. Are you feeling what I'm feeling or no?
Big time. You know, I mean, I have some friends who are like pretty hardcore boxing guys that I met, you know, just coincidentally, right? Like within the last few years, who were kind of skeptical about this fight, right? Oh, it's just a money grab, and you know, it's too big of a weight difference to overcome. I just think, man, you know, you have two of the best. I mean, post Mayweather Pacquiao, aside from like Usyk and, you know, Inoue at the extreme weight divisions, right? But I've always been kind of a welterweight, middleweight, you know, guy. I think these are two of the best fighters of the era, right? And still pretty close to their primes, both a little older. And you know, it's funny because I had to check. Crawford's actually 2 years older than Canelo, but both in their mid 30s. Neither guy has, you know, taken like a really bad defeat. I actually think the Canelo losing to Bivol has kind of grown in stature because Bivol is a really great fighter himself. And what he did with Better Beef, I thought was really impressive. You know, Crawford, you know, struggled a little bit against Madrimov, but that guy is really tricky type of fighter. And Crawford still won the fight, clearly, right? So I look at it like, man, yes, we'd probably all love to see Canelo go fight Benavidez, right? Like, you know, you can nitpick every single matchup of, oh, this should have, you know, there's probably any fight you can go and, you know, kind of critique it, right? Or there could be something better. But to me, no, this is the main event. I think this is the biggest fight since Mayweather Pacquiao in terms of just star power, legacy, and skill level. And I think that, you know, these are two, like I said, all-time great fighters. And this is obviously a huge legacy fight for both, right? I mean, if Crawford somehow pulls this off, he's getting into really, really special territory.
I don't even know where you could put the cap on where he would belong historically if he did this, because, you know, I know he's got that 154 belt. You mentioned the win over Madrimov. That was challenging and very close, and it came after a 1-year layoff, and this fight will come after more than a year layoff, but he's basically moving up 3 weight divisions. Like, that's freaking insane, James. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to take that away from him, because that's the biggest prize at stake here. The chance for him to go as a guy who's undefeated and great, and what he did against Errol Spence 2 years ago, I don't think we should ever stop talking about. But a guy who had been on the wrong side of the street, didn't get the big PBC names that he really deserved. I mean, for Canelo, it might be just another great name on his resume. But for Bud Crawford, I mean, I don't know what the hashtag Harry Grebheads are going to say about it, but I don't really know what we would do about him if he went in there against a still top 7 pound for pound Canelo, 3 weight classes above, and beat him in a damn stadium live on Netflix. Holy crap, bro.
Ooh, just getting some chills, bro. No, you know, you're right. And you always used to say, you know, dare to be great, right? Crawford is doing that. He's not doing it for free. You know, he's going to get a massive, massive payday. But I think both these guys really are killers in the ring. I mean, he's not going to, I mean, I will be shocked, and I can almost guarantee he's not going in there like Charlo, who I thought maybe Charlo could, pose some issues for Canelo. Well, I don't think, first of all, I think I was wrong by even suggesting that, but nor did he even try to do that, right? I don't think Crawford is that kind of guy at all. I mean, I think he's going to really try to use everything in his arsenal to get a win. And I can't wait to see what he does. I think he is, in terms of like the cerebral aspect, just the chess match of boxing, very different styles, but probably the closest guy to Mayweather in terms of that competitiveness, the ability to like read an opponent, you know, to kind of ease his way into a fight and start figuring out the timing.
He's kind of meaner and got more offensively potent.
Got a real mean streak, big time. And you know, the thing with the Madrimov, that's like the worst style guy that you would want to fight, jumping up in a weight class, a guy who's just intentionally so awkward and kind of making it ugly and all the little kind of herky-jerky. So I don't hold it against him. In some ways, maybe it kind of enabled this fight to happen, right? Because Crawford didn't look so good. But at the same time, I want to give Canelo a lot of credit because throughout his career, he has taken really hard fights that like an A-side big money fighter doesn't necessarily always do that, right? Like Arislandi Lara what did he have, like 14 fans? I mean, they were very loud on Twitter at the time, but I don't think he had a really big following. Canelo didn't need to go do that, right? But he was the best guy at 154 at that time. Even Golovkin, which was like, yeah, but that was seen as a huge risk at the time. And for Canelo to do that and give him a rematch, and I just don't think you can question Canelo's desire, to be great himself. And if he doesn't, he lost to Bivol, right? I know Benavidez is at what, 168 as well.
No, he moved up to 75, and
so you're asking him to jump up again and fight the best guy. It's like I think he's earned the right not to do that and get called, not be called a pussy. Although I'm sure many people are. So I just respect both guys a lot, and I think just like stylistically, it's got potential. You wouldn't think it would become an action fight, but it's just such a chess match in terms of like the styles. And there's a lot of similarities, I think, in the way that they like to start fights, kind of maybe both more comfortable fighting like off the back foot a little bit and kind of like processing and starting as a counter puncher, right? Getting the timing and kind of figuring out the opponent and then maybe, taking over more aggressively. So it's going to be really interesting to see.
They're both counter punchers. It's going to be interesting who does take that lead. Like,
Yeah. And again, I think you have to favor Canelo. I mean, and he is favored about 2-1. I think it's like minus 190. I might think he would even be a little bit bigger favorite just for a couple reasons. I think he's just got more ways to potentially win. We've never seen Crawford even close to the weight. We've seen him fight once at 154. You also think, you always got to think, well, who are the judges going to favor in those kind of close rounds? And Canelo, he throws maybe a little bit more showy combinations where I think Crawford can tend to be more of like a kind of one punch, like very precision type of puncher. Sure. But those punches that Crawford throws can be extremely effective and land very clean. And so I don't rule out at all that he can just sort of like dominate the fight, in that way. I do question whether he can hurt Canelo. Canelo's neck is like, it's like, that's the other thing. Neither of these guys has ever really like gotten their ass kicked in the ring before.
No. What did Bud have? That flash knockdown against Mean Machine Kavaliauskas, my Lithuanian brethren, or not a flash one. I think it was legit, but no, outside of him getting hurt against Gamboa before he finished Gamboa, which was, such a breakthrough performance, he's been incredible. But you bring up the chin, and I think it's an interesting point to talk about. Like, look, when Crawford beat Spence the way he did in 2023, if they had immediately made that Canelo fight, I probably would have been on that chorus of people going, if anyone could do this, it's him. But here's the deal. The more time we get to think about this fight, the more that they both get older. Canelo has, we know the one famous punch from Jose Miguel Cotto that once rocked him for like a half second when he was 21 years old.
Yeah.
Dude, you watched that Golovkin rematch like I did when he walked Triple G down and took every big hook he had. If he's not going down against that guy or against Danny Jacobs or against Dimitri Bivol, just putting it on him along the ropes, I really cannot see a scenario where Crawford hurts him. So could Crawford outbox him? Certainly. But I think there's two things people are forgetting about. One, that Canelo ain't going anywhere on a punch. And two, I don't think Canelo's as washed as slowed down or as old as people actually believe. I just don't think he's had the motivation in recent fights because he's ducking Benavidez like a bitch. And I did say that out loud. I just feel like he has taken some of these guys the distance because, hey, why not? Right. I believe Canelo is going to get in sick shape for this fight. And I just don't see that where Bud can somehow like be the bully and walk him down. Am I missing something here?
That's what I think. That's my gut, is that it's going to be a really uphill battle. And then we don't really know, like, can Canelo hurt Crawford? I mean, Crawford has a great chin. He's never fought anybody this size. I do think that Canelo's, I don't think Canelo's ever really, like, his punches seem they just like sound so big. He's never really been like a knockout style puncher, even at the lower weight classes. But he is I think it's fair to say, like, he's not a patty cake. It's not your boy Paulie Malignaggi out there.
Yes.
So we don't know.
Jim,
how
he carried the weight. He carried the power up in weight.
Yeah, big time. I mean, he's got enough to back guys off, right? I mean, he's definitely got enough to do that. I think that you look at like some of the recent fights, it's hard to judge when Canelo's coming in as like a 10-1 favorite against people who really have no chance to win the fight, and then expecting like, oh, well, why did he didn't knock him out in the 4th round? Therefore he's washed. He only won, 11-1 on the scorecards, right? It's like, so I'm going into this feeling like neither guy's washed. I mean, you could do a revisionist. Here's a quick hot take. You could go back to Crawford and Spence and say, well, Spence was washed. Nobody said that going into it, right? But he was on a huge layoff. He never did anything after that fight. Obviously, got completely destroyed that night. So it took some, but it's easy to say it. I think we have to just respect the fact that, like, look, Canelo, Golovkin fights, little controversial scoring, right? But you look at the record, he has only ever officially lost to Bivol, who is a stud, and Floyd Mayweather when he was 22 or whatever. So the dude's, got a pretty solid track record. I don't like calling somebody washed until after they've taken a bad beating or a bad loss. And I think no matter what happens in this fight, it's going to be hard to say that about either guy. And to me, Crawford, it looked a little shaky, right? His one fight at 154, but he got the job done, and he's never lost his career. So, yeah, I think it's an awesome matchup. I'm really happy that they did make it when they did. I see your guy Turki. I mean, I'm willing to overlook all of the Saudi human rights violations and Turkey's involvement in multiple deaths and everything else. He's making some good fights. He's kind of roping us back in. Yeah, there was that incident.
Well, I love this because I definitely wanted to get your. Wait, what was that?
Is Turkey on the Epstein list?
I think he may have removed Epstein from that jail cell, to be fair with you.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good theory.
I mean, Turkey's involvement for a guy like you who was on the pulse of it, but now you're sort of just watching fights, being a fan. I definitely wanted to get your take, but I almost have to usurp that because you were around when Bob Arum famously told Ariel Helwani in Yankee Stadium in 2011 that MMA is a bunch of skinheads watching other skinheads. What the frick do you make about 2025 and Dana White not only being in boxing, but like, we're going to change the Ali Act, Turkey's going to pay for everything, and TKO's got like this 3-headed monopoly? Like, I don't think any of us 10 years ago or 11 years ago, when you and I were at the Sergey Kovalev after party at 4 a.m. in Atlantic City, I don't think we could have imagined this scenario that Dana would be here right now with this weird gang of characters around him, including one of the richest people in the world due to connection to his government. Does that make you like intrigued of what this Netflix card in a giant stadium will look like? Because we've heard forever, if anyone can save boxing, maybe it's Dana.
Well, I have mixed feelings about it. I don't particularly care for Dana White as a person, and don't, whatever. But I think he obviously, like, he's done a great job as sort of a businessman and a promoter for UFC. I haven't really been to UFC ever since they kind of got out of like the Faces of Death early era, where there was no weight closses and no, you had the sumo wrestler getting his teeth kicked out and the ref didn't even know to stop the fight, and you could wear costumes, and 600-pound Puerto Rican bar fighter who was 651 or whatever, knocked out in 10 seconds. So once UFC became a legitimate sport and it became, as Bob Arum described, guys rolling on the ground. And I'm kidding, because there's a ton of skill and artistry in UFC, obviously, right? And I think Dana White, like, he's a great promoter, and it's going to bring more eyeballs and bigger, spotlight on the fight. As a boxing fan, all I care about really is just getting good fights to see, and not having to pay for this is nice. In the old days, this would be like adjusted for inflation, probably a $200 pay-per-view, tonight, or in September. So, I think it's good to just have more people get invested into the sport. I mean, I prefer stand-up fighting boxing. I prefer it to, the styles that you see in a typical UFC fight. That's just my personal, preference. And dude, I want to just say real quick, of course I was down with like John Jones and Anderson Silva, GSP. I was still kind of into it throughout that era. I've fallen off in recent years. I like to keep my politics and my boxing and my combat sports separate. And one criticism of UFC is it's kind of gone all in on, a certain brand of, and I'll just leave it at that. And so it's turned off some people. And that combined with the fact that all the fighters that I liked and I followed don't fight anymore. But if John Jones, gets maybe just, can do a couple rails of blow and get himself back into good shape and make a comeback, I might check it out.
Yeah, maybe you can get a spot on the White House lawn when they go there in July. By the way, my employer just paid $7.7 billion for the rights to the UFC, so I'm going to be deep in the skinhead business once again. So shout out to that. Turki is this crazy international man of mystery who has made Rick Reno, formerly of boxing scene, into a 80s wrestling pro wrestling manager, and has turned Mike Coppinger into Jim Lampley. I mean, it's just a wild turn of events for that top operator.
Ooh, don't mention their names in the same sentence. I mean, did Cop get his Saudi citizenship yet?
I don't know, but I'm always like, if you're going to kill journalists, I mean, please, right? I could give you a name of a few, but seriously though, like,
well, let me say one thing really quick is that, Brian, just one thing really quick is I think a lot of us are a little troubled. They're just curious about AI sort of threatening jobs and taking over. But if it means replacing journalists like Cop, I can't argue with it.
Like, Turki's 2 years has given us like massive fights. He's going to fund the new Zuffa Boxing League, which, look, I mean, for all we know, it could turn out to be something great that the sport, and by the way, that's the whole debate about the Ali Act. For as much as we fear monopolization and fighters getting taken advantage of, it's not like the default in boxing has been all that great. It's driven people like you into regular life again. But my point is, Turki's given us huge fights, but it's also kind of killed the American boxing scene. It's just really been a weird run with him as the central figure of the sport. I wish you were still podcasting to get a week by week update, but like, what do you make of this character who loves the camera on him like any good power promoter? But like, is the money going to last? It's not his money. Like, what the hell's going to happen here?
And, I think the money can last. I mean, I think that they're going to have, I think so, as long as we're driving, there's still some, gasoline powered cars or whatever. I think that he is a character. I thought it was funny when he inducted himself into the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. I think it was on a fight card that was in California.
Yes.
So that was kind of bizarre. But look, at the end of the day, it's a good thing for the sport to have like the powers that be seem to be interested in making the best fights, right? And that was not the case when you had Bob Arum at Top Rank and, Golden Boy and the promotional feuds. And, and that's the thing with UFC is, look, they have a ranking system. Everyone's under the same banner. They get 1 versus 2 and they make the big fights that people want to see. And, I think Dana White's done a great job growing the brand. And part of it is because of that, right? Because he's not feeding his people, slop every, sure. I mean, there were stretches, just some of these fights that have been on pay-per-view in the old pay-per-view model were just ridiculous to make people pay for that. And I think it definitely got worse after sort of the HBO boxing went out of business and Showtime and it went to DAZN, whatever. I think that it became, still fractured. You weren't getting great products. I mean, what Canelo Berlanga, was that a pay-per-view? Every Canelo fight's a pay-per-view and he's a 12-1 favorite type of thing. But it does seem like Turki, I mean, with, Usyk Fury, I suppose, was kind of inevitable. But I mean, that was two amazing fights. First fight was a great heavyweight fight. And so to just get like best versus the best in each weight class, or in this case, kind of a pound for pound matchup, you can't really complain, or at least for me, I can't really complain about the product that I'm seeing from him. I think it does make people a little uneasy. Like, I watched one of those fights with my neighbor in the backyard, and a bunch of the neighbors were there. It might have been the one that the historic, Hall of Fame induction fight. And there were a couple people, you know, and I'm in a very liberal place. I live in Chicago. You know, maybe it was a little too woke, but people were uncomfortable. Like, why are the Saudis, you know, taking over boxing? Right? It's kind of like the same thing with golf, because we know, you know, it's like they don't have a great track record. That's an understatement as far as like human rights and things that we think in America, you know, freedoms that we believe in, right? And so the fact that just the money can basically, you know, make people kind of abdicate any of that responsibility or care about any of that stuff is a little troubling. But I've just become so cynical in recent years that it's like, I just want a good fight to watch, and I'll let someone else try to solve the world's problems.
I mean, I get that. I'm coming around too, because it's like, am I really protecting the 4 sanctioning bodies, like the 4 most corrupt things that have ever sucked the life out of boxing? I mean, what
is
are we
the alternative,
doing?
right? They're just the biggest degenerates in American society. I mean, maybe there was something nice about having, you know, just old school American criminals like Don King.
Yeah, it was
others,
refreshing. Yeah, or the mafia running the sport.
Yeah. So it's always been a little unsavory, right?
Speaking of our old legendary heroes that are somehow still here, Grandpa Bob Arum is going to be like 94. And even though Top Rank has yet to announce a new TV deal post ESPN exit, like, even if you're telling me this guy's a figurehead only, he's still traveling to every single fight, still getting high left and right. I still see that clip going around about the orgy at the Philippine Grand Garden Hotel. Never screwed so many women in my life. Like, what is it about?
How many other people we know were involved? Were there? Was Nigel in the house? And
I think Nigel might have conceived Rafe at that same event. All right. My point is, what is it with the reptilianness of these old boxing promoters like Don King, who is still sending out emails trying to block his fighters from fighting other people? These 2 guys are in their damn 90s, dude. Al Heyman's still kicking. Like, this is an insane life.
Yeah.
I don't get it, man.
I don't know. And that reminds me, I mean, yeah, you can make the joke about Arum, you know, maybe it's the weed, just preserving his body somehow, giving him the energy to keep going. I don't really know. I saw a picture of Larry Merchant hanging out with somebody the other day. Still look good. He's got to be 92 or something like that. But that reminds me, man, how wrong did they do our boy Chavez Jr.?
I know. At least they let him get that.
He's gonna be hanging from a bridge in this pretty soon, and not to make light of it, but I mean, they really fucked him by like allowing, like, okay, I don't know the details of the criminal case, but how do you allow the promotion and the fight to all go take place and then arrest him? Like, why didn't they should have gone Blues Brothers style and just arrested him like on the stage, you know, in the ring after the fight, right?
I'm like,
let the performance happen.
Is it because Jake Paul was at the Trump inauguration? I don't know, but I mean, if you have, you know, friends in high places, you can get big things like that done. It reminded me of when Nevada allowed Floyd to go to jail a month late so they can make the money off that Cotto pay-per-view back in 2012.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seemed odd, you know, that it was like, oh, we've had a warrant. Did the investigation just take place in the 3 days after the fight?
They're like,
by the way,
what a shitty he is. Yeah, you know,
fight, man. Why did I actually think Junior had a chance to win that?
I don't
you know,
know,
for some reason, I like Top Rack didn't look good. I just don't want to believe in Jake Paul. I mean, like, I'm kind of I mean, I know, isn't he fighting Gervonta Davis? Did that in an exhibition?
He is.
Though?
Like,
so
if he was fighting Anthony,
but I mean, I kind of want this to end with Canelo just beating the shit out of Jake Paul.
I'm just so done with the crossover circus crap.
Oh, yeah.
Like, dude, him against Tank in an exhibition. What the hell? Like, what is that? What is that? Didn't we just see that with Mike Tyson?
Part makes it kind of. Yeah, I mean, that was sad too. And I know some people had convinced themselves, like, oh, Tyson's gonna, you know, he's, you know, just be, you never lose your power. It's like, well, hey, how did Ike Ibeabuchi look in his comeback? Did that happen yet?
I think it may have happened. I didn't see the results. I'm still trying to get over the fact that when I was a young boxing fan, when he first went into jail, I was emailing him letters. I mean, is that weird? I don't know. I wanted him to come back and forget his prime. I wanted him to be champ, you know?
Did you have a conjugal visit with Ike Ibeabuchi?
Yes,
Um,
backdoor only. But no, it was during the Klitschko era where, we had to deal with like Chagayev and Sultan Ibragimov as our champions, as
no, I mean,
Klitschko.
he was awesome. Hibia was awesome. It's one of those kind of boxing mysteries. Like, how good would he have been if that hadn't happened, right? And given that we've forgiven, Turkey and so many others for their crimes, I don't know. I don't know the details of it. I'm pretty sure he murdered someone, right?
No,
So
I think he raped a woman, unfortunately. Yeah, he was a
Oh,
crazy
really?
dude.
Oh,
I mean,
I
he
thought he
served his
killed
time
somebody.
though, but
Okay.
wild. I mean, Oliver
I
McCall's still
forgive
fighting. You know this?
him for murdering a man, but raping a woman, I don't want to joke
Yeah,
about that.
you got to draw the line right there. I mean, look,
No,
boxing is full of
that's
shit,
insane.
as Paulie
The guy who
Malignaggi
got
said.
knocked out cold by Lennox Lewis like 40 years ago or something.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, he's fighting on this new
Yeah.
thing they have in Nashville called Country Box, where you can
Yeah.
hear
So,
live
I
country
mean,
music. And,
but sometimes the theater absurd gets us through the times when we don't get the competitive, great, high level fight.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Do you have a prediction this far out for Canelo Crawford? Like, where do you think this thing lies in the end?
I mean, it feels like Canelo by decision is the easy way to go. Like you're just kind of taking the paint on that. That's kind of what it was funny because I asked Raskin his opinion, and he said he's thinking Crawford by decision, which is interesting. And your boy Rafe is going to pick Crawford because I think he's picked against Canelo in every single major fight of his career. So why stop now?
Including Rocky Fielding. Yeah.
Yeah, he picked Ionut Dan over Canelo. I don't even think that they fought, but he picked. I think he had Liam Beefy Smith. I just think it's hard to pick against Canelo. Like you're kind of being a contrarian to pick Crawford. I could see it though. I mean, I could see it, and I don't even think it involves like, oh, Canelo has to be. If Canelo's washed, then Crawford wins. I don't even think so. To be honest, I think Crawford is more skilled. Right? I think he's a better fighter. I don't think it's that big of a gap. As big as the weight gap, so size matters and having and just being comfortable at fighting at that weight. And, the way that that's the thing that really like kind of worries me is I feel like in the Madrimov fight, I don't think Crawford was like rehydrating up to 165. I mean, that's the other thing, right? I don't think he's like a guy who walks around at 168 and hydrates. No. I mean, maybe when he's not training, right? But I don't think he's like as a welterweight, he's putting on 20 pounds the next day. So that's the thing. Like Canelo, I feel like Canelo is probably in the ring close to 190 or something, or in the 180s. So that being it, I think you have to kind of feel like Crawford may feel pressure, especially if it's sort of like after the early rounds, if there's not much happening. My fear is that Crawford may then feel like he has to start taking more risks. And I think Canelo is just such a good counterpuncher and with the weight advantage. And if Crawford can't hurt him and get him off of him, and then he feels like he can start kind of walking forward and just kind of like optically look like he's winning the fight, because you can have Canelo by decision, and that can mean that he beats him straight up, or that it's controversial and he wins, right? Or that it's bullshit and half the people think Crawford won. And because I think if it's a close fight, I think it's Canelo. I just think judges are going to favor that style. And I think the way that it looks in the ring when you see this bigger guy stalking a smaller guy, which I think is probably how the second half of the fight is going to play out. Even if Crawford's doing a lot of good stuff counterpunching, it's going to have to be so emphatic. Maybe it will be. But if it just gun to my head, I think that's where I'm at. What do you got? Are you holding off on making the prediction? I don't want.
No, I've been flipping. I flipped at times, of course, but I'm back on the realization that Canelo is so skilled, even in this older version of him. He's going to get in sick shape for this. I just can't see. I mean, could I see Crawford winning even upwards of 5 rounds by outslicking him? Yes. I mean, Amir Khan outslicked him until he got sent to hell. The speed, the elusiveness, even in an older Crawford, will be real. But Canelo's so accurate, man. And he does land those type of big time counter shots that win over the judges absolutely consistently. So I got to lean on him in that regard. I do think there's a potential where this could be a boring fight, or it could be a fight that, gets us all excited coming in, but is ho hum at the way out. But the one thing that gives me confidence beyond that is that Crawford is a dog. This is his chance. This is this is his moment to like legitimately make a massive leap. I can't even remember someone who had an opportunity like this where you're like, well, if they win that, like, is he top 10 all time? Like, what the hell? Like, it is that crazy. I just can't count out Big Red. My bigger question, though, with this fight is kind of circles around Crawford's trainer, Bomac, Brian McIntyre. Do you think he'll have snacks in the corner or just like, like loaded up in the locker room waiting for him?
Well, I know that if someone like parachutes in the ring, he's the guy that I have with the walkie-talkie just smashing them in the head, right? So, one other thing I think about is that I feel like if Canelo's walking through Crawford's punches, even if Crawford's landing well, I don't feel like Crawford can take the punches the same way, So even if Crawford doesn't really get hurt or get knocked out, I think he's going to look more like hurt by the incoming fire type of thing, right? Where I think that, and that's another one of my fear. I just think like aesthetically, it might look like Canelo is doing better than he is. And it could be one of those fights where you have some people like, oh, I had it 7-5 Crawford. Like most people might have 8-4 Canelo, but some people are kind of like, well, I don't know. I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. And you're right. Like, I don't want to bet. I'm probably going to pick Canelo the whole time and then bet on Crawford like the day of the fight because I'm going to root for him. I love both guys. I've been a Canelo fan for a long time, even when he had a lot of like haters early in his career. I always liked him. I thought he was like a very unique fighter and kind of like character. But at the end of the day, like just the challenge that Crawford is taking and as the underdog going up this, basically, like you said, 3 weight classes, I'm gonna have to root for him, right? Like, so I'm gonna probably, as soon as the fight starts, feel like, fuck, like, let's go, and I think he can do it, but I just think it's gonna have to be like such a dominant performance for him to, get out of there and maybe it will, but it's hard to bet on that because I really do respect Canelo's skills.
I mean, I did score the Trout, Lara, and both Golovkin fights for not Canelo. And I also scored the Jacobs fight a draw. People still hound me. Before we close here, Jimmy, and I love catching up with you, brother. You mentioned Usyk earlier, and, Turki did give us the Usyk Fury rivalry. Hell, he gave us better Bivol, which was fantastic. What Usyk has gone on to do is just stupid insane at cruiser and now heavy. And I am of the believer that this heavyweight era is actually pretty good. Like, we're, this ain't Frazier and Foreman and, Ali, but like, I really believe this over totality to history, it's a pretty damn good heavyweight era. And Usyk has largely run the whole table. Do you think he's great for this era, or do you think he's one of those dudes that really is top 10, great for all time, that you plug the 6'3" southpaw in any era and he's given problems?
For sure. I think he's all-time great. Now, as far as like top 10, it's so hard to cross eras. You know what I mean? Like, and so, because I saw somebody who I respect, like on Twitter saying, I don't think he's top 10 all time, and listed top 10 heavyweights, right? And was like, who would you take off the list? It's hard to do that. I mean, it's just so subjective. But I mean, I would disagree slightly. Like, I think that this era is fine. And at the top, there are very good fighters. Like, for sure, Usyk is an all-time great. I think Tyson Fury, could have banged against the Lennox Lewis. I hate the way he fights. I hate his style, but I think he would be a hard out for basically any heavyweight in history, right?
Sure.
He knows how to win ugly, and he's got a lot of heart. He gets hurt and he gets up. I think at the time, you have guys like Anthony Joshua, physical specimen, Deontay Wilder, like with a huge one-punch knockout power, right? So you have really good fighters. I think the other eras probably had more depth, and that's sort of like, if you're looking at like maybe the top 3 or 4, it can kind of compare. If you're going like top 20, I just think there were better guys, and some of that is because boxing is not as prominent of a sport as it was. I'm not taking that back to the John L. Sullivan days, but I mean, I think in the 70s, 90s, those really good heavyweight eras, I would obviously rate those like higher. But no, I mean, I think Usyk has to be considered like an all-time great fighter. I'm hoping the boy, what's his name, Moses Itama?
Yes.
He looked insane in just the highlights I saw. And Dillian White is not, he's not like a total scrub. So I'd love to see somebody come up and really challenge Usyk. I know Usyk's a little older. Well, how old is he? Pushing 40, right?
I think he's like 38, and he's claiming he's
Yeah.
got 1 to 2 fights left, and Turkey really wants to push the 20-year-old Atalma against him, even if it's too early. And I got to say, you put that in a 96,000 seat soccer stadium in the UK, and I got a hard on from here to Hanover. I'm telling you, you know.
That's the thing, man. I mean, you might not be able to wait around until it's like makes perfect sense, right? So that would be good. It's too bad there's not like good American heavyweight prospects, but like it's like all the best athletes of that size play other sports where they're not getting their heads punched in, you know? So,
Yes.
but no, I have much respect for Usyk. I think you could compare him to a lot of, I mean, I wouldn't have him probably, but again, we have like a reverence for history. Like, could Usyk beat Joe Louis prime versus prime in an actual fight? Yeah, probably. I'm not saying he would, but you can't be like, he would get destroyed by anyone. Of course not. Is Joe Louis a greater overall heavyweight? Yes, like he is. He has a better resume against the, you know, those Hall of Fame level fighters. Same with Muhammad Ali. You know, so it's like, I'm not going to put Usyk as like, he's the GOAT, but I think that, you know, you start comparing it, like, does Usyk belong again? Could you compare him to like a Lennox Lewis as far as career accomplishment and like overall skill? For sure. And that's the hard thing about the all-time stuff. It's where I always struggled with Floyd. Like, I think Sugar Ray Leonard, I don't think there's been a fighter better, like greater than Sugar Ray Leonard since then.
Agreed.
But that's because of what he accomplished as well as like how skilled he was. Whereas a guy like Floyd, I think you can kind of nitpick certain parts of his resume, but like skill-wise, is among the best I've ever seen or anyone's ever seen, right? So it's, do you grade it on like how good were you at your very best, or do you grade it, you know, how accomplished are you in terms of like how many heads do you have on your resume, and did you fight them when they were still, you know, at like the top of their games, right? And I think Floyd's resume in like years from now, decades from now, is going to look amazing because he's got all the big names from his era. And people aren't going to remember, you know, oh, he fought like older versions of blah, blah. He fought a younger version of Canelo. I mean, right now he's one of the only 2, you know, L's on Canelo's resume. And Canelo's an all-time great fighter himself, right? He's got the Pacquiao. He's got Mosley, Mark, everyone. So Oscar De La Hoya. So it's like, at the end of the day, a lot of this is like recency bias. 100 years from now, my great-grandchild, Jude Foley, the fourth,
yes.
You know, who knows, man? He might have Usyk might be like a top 5 consensus heavyweight. You know, it just, I mean, you never know. But I think right now, it's hard to say that he's like top 5 all time, top 10 all time. Feels pretty close.
Well, he's also got like 8 heavyweight fights in his career too. They just happen to be like,
I mean, that's the other thing. I'm kind of taking the totality of his career and like putting him against those guys. But no, you're totally right. And that was a critique that dude made too. It's kind of Holyfield style, right? Like dominated cruiserweight.
Yes.
Went up and did great things at heavyweight. And to me, of that era, I know he took some L's. Like he lost to Lennox Lewis, should have twice, right? Got one draw, then lost. I rank Holyfield as a greater all-time fighter than Lennox Lewis. Was he a greater heavyweight? I mean, yeah, then no. But you know what I mean? Like, so, and Usyk's never lost. So that's the thing. I mean, he's pulling a Rocky Marciano right now, isn't he?
He is. And he couldn't even get on TV a few years ago. Remember the World Boxing Super Series thing that Schaefer did? You had to find a grainy stream for that. So it's incredible what he's done.
Where's your boy Schaefer? Where is your boy Schaefer? Can we call?
You know, he's resurfaced, but he can't really get over. He started a promotion company at first. It didn't go anywhere. Then he was John Jones's MMA manager. That didn't go anywhere. Now he's Canelo's new, like, you know, advisor. I don't know. Like he's lingering, but I'm not seeing, you know, ever since he made Oscar, tried to get Oscar to sign away Golden Boy on the, at the rehab center. It didn't work out for him since then, you know, but that's fine. I mean, we do have a new Manny Pacquiao, and his name is Lucas the Machine Matisse. There you go. There you go.
It was all downhill when he really put the top in on Lucas Matisse, right?
Yeah, yes, indeed. Jim Foley, this has been amazing to talk the box with you. Are you going to be doing this more? Like, are you and Ellie Seckback going to start that podcast you were talking about?
Wait, sorry, I missed what'd you say?
I said, I want to hear you talking about
Um,
boxing more. Are you and Ellie Seckback going to start that new podcast called Take a Step Back? Is that still in the works?
Oh, okay. I didn't see who you. Yeah, I didn't see which one of my fame. The sordid characters that you made my co-host. So I missed that part. Yeah. I'm actually working on something. I think I'm going to pivot into like kind of a right-wing political commentator, and I'm going to start working for Jason Whitlock and Steve Kim. So
Oh, yes,
I'll have something coming out soon on that. It's going to be a lot about culture wars and the woke mind virus and how that ties into everything here. But no, man, it's been great talking to you. Thank you for having me on here. I'm a huge fan. Of course, what you're doing is awesome. Really happy to just see, like, hoping for continued success. I want to revive HBO boxing and get you in there as the new Lampley or Larry Merchant. To you, man, and like, it's been awesome talking, and I'd love to come back anytime.
I'm just trying to be the new Castle Chalice, to be honest with you. Okay, all right.
That guy had a run.
Yeah,
that guy had a great run, man.
He did.
That's our discussion about career longevity versus how good were you at your peak.
For that one night, he was great. To close, you're in Chicago. You're going to be writing for Jason Whitlock, which means you'll probably have some WNBA opinions. Have you thrown a green dildo yet at a Sky game or no?
No, but no, I haven't, and I don't want to comment on it. I think it's kind of horrifying that's happening. I've got much respect for the WNBA. I think they're incredible athletes. So I think it's kind of juvenile and stupid. Whoever's doing that, I don't approve of it. But I did want to mention one thing before I forget. I went to a boxing show in Chicago recently, and it was very low level. And there was a Polish prospect on the card who was doing awesome. Like, I doubt he's going to ever amount to anything, but it's like his first fight. Just kick the shit out of some guy and look over and I'm like, that dude in his corner is so familiar. And it was our boy, Andre Fonfara. So he's training now, dude. The Polish Prince.
That is awesome.
So I feel like that could be, you're talking like, yeah. So he's back in the game. And Kronk Jim was there too. And I was kind of thinking, I'm like, man, Fonfara might be the next Emmanuel Stewart.
Exactly where I thought you were going to go with that. So well done. James Foley, everyone. Can we follow you anywhere? Are you still around? Can we follow you?
No, I keep my green dildos at home for personal use.
Okay. James, thank you for your time. We'll have you back again. Can't wait to chat with you again. James Foley, everybody. Great to have this man talking about the box one more time.